Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6, I think, of Fit Enough. My name's Matt.
And I'm Sai, and in this podcast, we make strength training simple.
Today, we're going to be getting into injury prevention, particularly for beginners. We've got 3 tips for you, or I guess 3 ways of thinking about training. So we're going to get into that. We're going to try and make it as concise as possible, so it's not an hour long again. But on that note, a little bit of preamble about what we've been up to.
Yeah, we've had a pretty exciting week.
It's been great.
Yeah. Well, I guess the first big thing was our photo shoot.
Yeah.
Last Saturday now, so just over a week ago. And it was great. It was so cool to be like back in that zone. Last time we did that was, I guess, 20-minute strength.
Yeah.
Ages ago now, a year and a half ago. And yeah, we had Andrea, who was our photographer, and I know her through surfing. And she was awesome. She was so calm the whole day.
She was great.
And the photos look really good.
Yeah. She was very professional, had a very calming presence. And then we're with our friends James and Tina as well,
yes.
Which helped.
Big up James and Tina.
Create a bit of an atmosphere in their flat as well. So I suppose they were always going to be there. Good atmosphere or not. And then we got to do some shooting on Bondi Beach.
Yes.
We've seen some of the pictures. They look so good.
Yeah, and that's like pre-editing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we should be getting them back hopefully in the next week and a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got a couple back already, which started tinkering around with for the website.
Yeah, website, and then we can use them to kind of send out to people at this point, like gyms, any articles or anything that we can publish. Send a couple of pickies of us. With our bands. Yeah, very exciting. And then what else has happened? Or has it just been all strong bands?
That's it. We've booked some cinema tickets for the Sydney Film Festival.
Yeah, that's not strong band. That's
not
good.
Strong band, yeah. That's happening in a week and a bit's time.
We'll be thinking about strong band for the entirety of the film. But there's Sydney Film Festival that we did last year. It was really good last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. Did we watch
Anora?
No, we didn't watch Anora. We watched that with your parents in the Sydney Opera House. We watched There's Still Tomorrow, or There Will Be Tomorrow, the Italian film.
Oh, yeah.
That was really good. We watched 5 films, didn't we?
Because we get the 10-pack that gives us 5 tickets each.
Yes.
What did we watch?
The Agents of Happiness. That was our thing.
Oh, yeah. That was about the
Bhutanese. Is it
like
Bhutan?
the happiness index scale or something.
Yeah, and it's like government, I guess like Bhutanese civil servants who go around surveying people in farms and all sorts of people. It's a documentary.
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting, so like insightful to see how other people live and how and just that whole like idea of how do you quantify and rate happiness.
And it turns out one of the ways they do it in Bhutan, like how many goats you have or how many cows.
Yeah.
So they're like, I got 3 cows, so I'd say 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man.
Yeah. Like
we're
living
doing
in
it all wrong
poverty.
In the West.
And then it's like, I'm so happy. It's like, oh wow, that's how do we get that?
My bad. But then this year, I think there are some good films as well. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's a lot. It's very like current moment, global affairs focused. So I think we're going to see one about the war in Ukraine, one possibly about immigration.
Yeah, Palestinian family.
Oh yeah, that one sounds good. And then there's one that's meant to be really good called Secret Agent, which is a Brazilian one. So yeah, looking forward to that in a week's time, couple of weeks' time. I've lost track of where we are.
I think maybe just under 2 weeks we've got.
Yeah. But let's get on to it. Let's talk injuries, or rather a lack of, because that's what we want.
Yeah. So I think this is definitely something we hear a lot as personal trainers when people want to just get started. I think a lot of people are hesitant to because of the risk of injury, particularly people who've had injuries before and have niggles and aches and pains, or people who are a bit older. I completely get the concern that people have.
Working with LBI, it's given me a whole new perspective on that kind of, like, I guess you went through it yourself to a certain extent with your like surgery and rehabilitation, but just how much that concern is still present even when you've been like signed off by doctors, clean bill of health, you're good to go. It unsurprisingly, there's always that thing in the back of your head just being like, but am I good to go? Like, is that knee okay? Is that hip okay? And I think that's where these 3 tips really come in handy.
Definitely.
To give you that peace of mind. But the quote that I mentioned in that post the other day that Rory said, the doctor, when he was bigging up 20-minute strength, was that in terms of strength training as we age, he said, especially as we age, doing resistance-based training is far safer than leading a sedentary lifestyle, which I think is something so understated but so powerful, that actually the more you do, the more you put your body through to a certain extent, like the safer you're going to be, the higher the quality of life as you age, rather than being like, oh no, I shouldn't do that because I might get injured.
Yeah, completely. And I think before we go into like how to reduce your risk of injury when you first get started with strength training, that's like such an important point, is that strength training makes you way more resilient to injuries in the long run, and you can start and keep going in a very, very safe way. That's much safer than not doing any exercise and then stepping out onto the road. Well, like your risk of injuring yourself there while being I've actually got a story, is you're going to be at much greater risk than if you were sort of strength training at home or in the gym, wherever it might be.
Tell your story.
My story. I was in secondary school, and looking back at it, so I used to skip PE to go and practice music. So I was learning the flute. So.
Not like skip school or anything.
No. I was like truanting in a very geeky way. So I'd hide in the music block and just like practice my flute. So I think I just didn't do any PE for like 4 years, or this was like after. This was, I think, like in maybe not 4 years, maybe 4 years, like GCSE and sixth form time. So anyway, I was doing no sport whatsoever, and then I remember getting these boots off ASOS that were very cheap boots, but looked very nice.
What, not like no grip. Just normal everyday boots, not like
they were like
football boots.
Yeah. So they were just like, they had a slight heel to it,
right?
And they were like over the calf, and I felt really cool in them. I think I was in sixth form at this point, and it was the end of school, and I was crossing the road.
Oh no!
And I slipped. And guess what I did? Age 17, fractured my hip. I had a hip fracture from crossing the road.
God damn! Because you skipped PE to play flute.
Well,
it served you right.
And so I managed. They were like, oh, it was like there were these like builders across the road, and they were like as as English builders do. And in my pure like panic and adrenaline, I managed to cross the road, and then I just like stopped to catch my breath. I didn't know I fractured anything. I just knew I slipped and was very embarrassed.
It's making my skin crawl.
And then I just tried to start walking again, and I couldn't lift my leg up. So I had to like. Luckily, it was like the end of school, and like there were people coming, and I like waved down a friend at the time who like carried me to the bus, and then my brother came and picked me up from the bus stop and carried me home.
Medic!
And I couldn't walk. And anyway, we went to the hospital, we went to A&E, and my brother was with me, and the person at A&E, the doctor, I had my x-rays, and like, you've got a hip fracture, and then was asking, why has this happened? It's like, well, there's a few possible scenarios. One is people who are very inactive are far more likely to have breaks and like have these sort of fractures that happen.
Mm.
And my brother was just like laughing at me at that point, which kind of shamed me into probably doing more exercise.
Yeah, that was the moment you became a PT, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I can't let this happen to
Yeah.
anyone else.
But if I, like, you know, you don't really know, but like, yes, that is the likely situation is I wasn't active enough.
Yeah.
So that fall just caused me to fracture a hip. Anyway.
Did your brother know he wanted to be a doctor at that point?
I think he did, yeah, because he must have been in upper sixth and I was in lower sixth.
That was his first experience of like bedside manner as a
Yeah.
doctor. And he was like, ha!
Yeah. Well, I hope he doesn't do that with
No,
his
I'm
patients.
sure he does. Well, I don't know. Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, that brings us into tip number 1.
How good would it be if the doctor got the x-rays back and he said, quick question, have you been playing lots of flute and not moving around a lot?
And that's the thing, when you're playing the flute, your fingers get a workout, but nothing, and the lips, but
Then
like,
you could
and tongue.
walk on your fingers.
Yeah. The hips were not being
You
hit.
should have gone into rock climbing.
Oh yeah.
You would have been perfect for it.
But yeah.
Another life. Okay. Enough of that. We've definitely gone over the 20 minutes already. Are we getting into point 1?
Yes.
I don't need to be shouting. Sorry. Right. So point 1 is all about starting with the right foundations. And what we mean by foundations is spending the time to really get like the basic movement patterns really nailed down. I hate using that phrase. Get really confident with the basic movement patterns, because what we often see is that, and I definitely experienced this myself, there's this temptation to kind of like skip the boring stuff and get onto the sexy side of strength training. And what you're doing there is essentially missing out a whole portion of learning, and your body will find like ways to compensate for that lack of learning in the form of probably some inefficient movement patterns. And it's these movement patterns that then create an environment where injury is much more likely. Because we haven't done the work, we haven't done the build up to make sure that everything's feeling good, all the muscles are doing the right work, and you're feeling confident in those new movement patterns that you're going to be learning. So the idea here is we don't want to jump into anything crazy, and nor should you, because when you're a beginner, you just don't need this to progress, do you? But the other side of it is that if you're going into strength training with a lack of like support and guidance, and you just see things that are online and you're like, well, they're squatting and they're getting results, so surely I should be squatting. And then you get under a bar with no or little previous experience. That is just going to put you again in that environment where injury could be so much more likely, as opposed to if we took a step back, just really got used to the squatting movement, identified whether there are any areas that you needed to work on specifically, and then, you know, you'd be feeling confident in your body and you could progress as time goes on.
Yeah, definitely. I think so many people fall under that trap of should be doing this, or like, you know, I'm this many years old, or like I you know, like exactly like you said, they should be doing that. And I definitely fell under the trap, I think, particularly before becoming a PT and before my injuries, was this feels a bit weird in my back, but it's only 12 kilograms. Like I'm surely I can do more than that. And I'd go heavier. Like, and I remember taking videos and my form wasn't great, but I just felt like I should be going heavier before I fully understood.
Because you technically could go heavier.
I could. Yeah. But, and I was able to lift it. Yeah. But I had like, my back was rounded, like I was feeling it in my back more than my legs from doing a single leg RDL.
That hip was about to fracture again.
It's about to go. But yeah, I guess it's all that sort of feeling like you should be more progressed than you are, as that, you know, ego lifting at, you know, in the more extreme ends of it. Yeah. But like you say, setting those foundations, it might feel like you're not doing as much as you could be doing, but that's exactly where you really build those solid foundations, so then you can progress much
Yeah.
faster, much more safely in the long run.
I think if there is a should, which there never really is when it comes to things like strength training and nutrition and stuff, but if there is a should, it would be you should spend time on the basics. Like it would be, I think we've used this analogy before of like learning a language. No Spanish teacher is going to say to you like you should be able to say this paragraph in Spanish. They're going to say you should learn the adjectives, pronouns,
conjugations.
There we go.
All of those things.
Before moving on to any kind of like sentence structure or anything. But I definitely remember when I got into my CrossFit phase, I think that was probably because I saw someone snatching a heavy weight, like being able to lift the barbell above their head and squat down. And me being like, I could do that. Like, I'm a sporty person. I can pick this stuff up quite quickly. And I could, technically, but it was so inefficient in terms of like a movement pattern. And I would probably say that things like that contributed to my back injury. Because then I remember doing that strength and conditioning qualification. And in that, you learn all the Olympic lifts. And we went through the snatch, and I was like, I've done this before. I'm basically a coach already. And I did it. And then the coach, the teacher, kind of like walked through the 7-step protocol for a snatch. And I was like, I'm missing steps 2, 4, and 6 or something. And so that was a little bit of a humbling moment to know to check your ego and just stick with the basics for as long as you need to.
Like, it feels very personal when someone corrects you or tells you you've been doing it wrong, especially if you see yourself as like a sporty person. I remember when I was going to the gym in Madrid, and I was doing these single leg squats. I was getting low and like was just really pushing it. And then one of the PTs who became my PT at one point was like your knees are caving in a lot when you're doing that. Don't worry about going as low. And I'm like your knees are caving in. Why? Like, I've been rude for. And I was like, okay, oh shit, no, like it's not about getting super low. It's about going at your pace and building it up.
So number 1, fundamentals over everything.
Yes.
Before you start increasing weight, increasing reps or whatever, get those fundamentals right.
Good form, mind-muscle connection.
Boom. All those taglines. Number 2, this was yours, wasn't it?
Yes. So number 2 is, I think I say this every single session, every single class, is don't train through pain. And this is super important, but it's also something that I think people find tricky, like especially at first. So particularly when you're first starting, it's hard to know like what is pain, like what is a good pain and what is a bad pain, because when we talk about no pain no gain, or like that workout was like hurt so much and so sore, but there's a very big difference between a pain that could be a sign that your body is telling you something's not right, and then a soreness, which is very common and is just a part of training hard quite often. So I think understanding what is a normal soreness for your body, which you will get to know when you get the basics right and you train consistently and you do all of that stuff, like you will know when that soreness is actually completely fine. It's you're learning about your body with every single session that you do, and equally over time you'll know, actually this thing that I'm feeling, this sharp pain in my knee, that's not right, and I'm doing the exercises, I'm regressing it, and it's still building up. And I think with experience you'll know, okay, this pain is telling me something. I know I'm probably fine, but I'm just going to ease off of this exercise, because I know that if I keep going, it's just going to get worse. So
I think that's quite a common thing in, you kind of have like a Venn diagram of beginners to strength training, and then older people, both camps, and then obviously the cross section in between in particular, don't want to like flag pain as they see it as like something that they shouldn't be experiencing and perceiving that nobody else is going through it.
Yeah.
Like I get it with clients a lot where well, not a lot, but I've had it with clients before where they're an older individual who's new to strength training and they do an exercise and kind of like, so how was it? And they're like, yeah, it was good. It was good. Little something in the knee, but don't worry about it. It's fine. And it's like, well, no, we need to unpack that, because if that's something, if that's an injury that you are like exacerbating through the squat, we need to make sure that we're pulling it back and putting your health over everything else.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely got a few of those clients where, oh yeah, just a little niggle, like oh, it's just like oh, nothing. Was like, so if you were to rate it out of 10, 10 being the worst pain in the world, 0 being completely fine, what would it be? More like a 7. It's like
11. It's excruciating, but it's fine. Yeah. And do you use that scale of like? And I know the kind of rule of thumb is 3 to 10. Do you stick with that usually?
Yeah. So if a client is like, they have a sort of recurring injury, they've got it checked out before, or you know, we're keeping a close eye on it. When it's about a 2, not ideal but acceptable. If it gets higher than a 2, I think if it's a 3 and it's not getting better, like I will just refer them to a physio.
Right.
Because like that 3 out of 10, it's like it's pretty uncomfortable. Like if 10 is the worst pain in the world, 0 is normal. I use that scale a lot and get clients to just check in on their body and try and like make a bit of a log. Like I'll keep a log for them. They'll sort of start thinking, oh yeah, it was feeling much better last week and it's got worse again, or it was, oh actually it's feeling so much better today. I think people don't really notice the patterns as well.
Because I guess you push yourself into that mindset of being like, right, just get through it.
Yeah.
And maybe that no pain, no gain mantra comes up for lots of people as well, which is just the worst.
Very unhelpful.
In my eyes. The absolute worst.
I've got clients who are the other side of it as well, which I actually really appreciate. So they're like, oh, I'm just feeling something here. I'm just like, they'll like be very vocal about this, this, I'm feeling this issue. It's probably like it's, a 1 out of 10 pain, but, I like hearing about that being on their journey, especially as someone who's, like we said at the start, I've had those injuries and then I'm super conscious about re-injuring, like maybe too conscious, but just being aware of it without having that sort of fear or without that panic, but just like, okay, I'm just noticing these things about my body. And I know, like, putting myself in client shoes, you want the person you're trusting to help you get stronger, help you work through, build more resilience, so the pains aren't going to be as painful, or you're going to reduce your risk of injury. You want them to like understand how they're feeling and know that you care about them not feeling these like niggles and issues.
No, the detail is important. I always stress to clients, like, the more information you can give me, the better. And it's pained me to hear it in the past when, being in the gym, I've overheard a client saying to their PT, like, oh yeah, definitely feeling it a bit in there, and they're like, no, that's good, or like, don't worry about it. And it's like, I think you should investigate that a little bit more, maybe, to make sure everything's a good kind of soreness, like you're saying, rather than the bad kind.
And I think most of the time it's like, it is nothing to worry about, but you want to notice it and you want to be like heard about it. So I think that's important to then see that, spot the patterns, and like sometimes it is like adapting the exercise, sometimes it's completely taking out the exercise for the session, or even like a few weeks.
Because then I'm sure you've had it before with clients as well. This will be my last point, I promise. Where if if you start training someone who's new to strength training and they're saying like, oh man, it's really painful there and really painful there, and like, you know, you're using an exercise that's working your hamstrings, and they're saying, oh, I can really feel it in the quads and things like that. A month down the line, that same person is like, yeah, really feeling the contraction in the hamstrings. You know, the quads are stabilizing me, but it's not a painful feeling. Like, they have done the groundwork to figure out exactly what those sensations are. And I think that's the best feeling, because then you're really on the right track with that individual for them getting more and more confident in their body. And that's the biggest win.
Definitely, that huge part of overcoming an injury is not just physically getting better, but it's like psychologically of that whole journey of trusting your body again.
No, I think that's up there with the best.
Okay.
Last but not least, progress gradually. And again,
not aggressively.
That kind of goes without saying. Again, this is going to be one that we'll probably say every podcast that we're speaking about strength training, we'll say to every client. But it's just the idea of not doing too much too soon. Again, there will be that temptation. You might technically be able to do heavier on some lifts, but when you're new to strength training, you actually need to do very little in order to make progress. So it's kind of like, why not make the most out of that opportunity and just take your time to work through your strength development without pushing yourself over the top and risking injury, but also kind of like burning out, just getting tired of the gym, losing the enjoyment out of this whole experience of getting stronger and getting more confident in your body. I think the costs of pushing yourself too much too soon far outweigh the potential short-term gratification of like, look at me with 10 kilos. Like, you'll get to 10 kilos. Don't worry about it for now. So yeah, is this the number one cause of beginner injuries, going too much too soon, do you think?
Yeah, I think this ties in with number one as well. I think perhaps more for like endurance sports than strength training. Point. I think people find it a lot more tempting to go from, you know, maybe they ran a half marathon when they were 21 and then at age 40 they're like, let me just try it. Let me just try it. I haven't, you know, run more than 2 kilometers. But I think like for strength training as well, and also it's like, it's very, when you're progressing gradually, it's very specific to the type of movement that you're doing. So just because you can squat,
that's a good point,
60 kilos or whatever it might be, doesn't mean then you can, you know, deadlift 60 kilos if you've not been building up your deadlifts over time. So I think when you build it up gradually, it's not just about, you know, your entire lifetime of building up, but it's like, when's the last time you actually did this exercise? What are the foundations you've put in place to get there? And, you know, what is a sort of sensible amount to be adding on? Normally we say like 10%, like, you know, it completely depends on the individual, but you want a fairly small percentage where you are adapting. And it might be, you know, you try it for the first set, you're like, okay, this was so easy, let me just add on 10% for the second set. That's still really easy, let me just add on 10%. And then it gets to a point where it's like, actually, I know I've just not done this exercise for so long, so even if it feels easy, you're putting a lot more load on your body in the way that it's not used to. So despite it feeling easy, you still want to build it up gradually to make sure you're progressing safely, and you're not going to be incredibly sore the next day where you can't train for the next week, or it just might cause something. And
I think the progress element of strength training is so enjoyable. You don't really want to like muddy the waters and get so many different variables that you might be adjusting or that might be proving successful, where you don't know what is actually contributing to your progress. So I think it's a much more sensible and enjoyable approach to be like, okay, I'm going to just focus on, for the next 4 weeks, trying to get more reps on my body weight squat. And then you get to the end of the 4 weeks and you've added like 5 reps to your squat. Whereas if you're going, okay, so next session I need to do more reps and I need to slow the tempo down and I also need to increase the weight, then you don't actually know what is aiding your progression. And it all becomes a little bit confusing, and it just, again, takes an element of the enjoyment out of strength training, which is about progress. And this progress could, as you say, look like set to set, increasing the weight, could look like week to week, you could go a little bit heavier, but progressing gradually could also mean you stick at the same weight, same reps for a month, and you feel really good with that exercise at the end of the month. And you say, okay, next month I'm going to add 2.5 kilos onto that. And that is still progress. Like that's perfect progression.
I think that's the best way of seeing progress, is when someone really struggled with an exercise to begin with, and then it's like, still fairly hard, but they're well in their capabilities of doing it. That's like the carryover you want to see in real life. It's like, when you're walking up that hill and you're like completely out of breath and your knees feel like they're gonna bust, and and then you get back to it and it's actually, that was enjoyable. Like that's just such a great feeling to feel like I did this thing before and it was really hard, and now I'm so much more capable.
Whereas if you've already moved on to the next thing next week, there's no time to actually reflect. And I've definitely had it with my training since being back from Vietnam with my kettlebell training, because we hadn't done anything too intense, like endurance wise, when we were out in Vietnam. I had a kettlebell circuit. I was planning to do it for 20 minutes. It's like a 20-minute circuit. And I got 3 sets in. It must have taken me like 7 minutes. And I was like, I've got to stop. This is too much. And the temptation was there to switch things up and go to something that I could do for 20 minutes. But you're much better off sticking to that same thing, because what I've seen across the last 4 weeks is that 7 minutes then quite quickly jumped to 15 the next week as I started to get my endurance back. Then I could do the full 20 in week 3. And now I've just pushed myself a little bit more in that 20 minutes. So still doing the exact same thing, but just seeing that progression happen in real time with the same exercises. That's as rewarding as it gets. And you obviously prevent injuries by just sticking to the rules you've set for yourself.
Love that.
Point number 3, progress gradually. So we have got, let's summarize. Point 1, make sure you're getting those fundamentals right. Stick with the foundations for as long as you need to, basic movement patterns. Then you can really set yourself up for progress in the long term. Then we're not working through pain. Soreness, fine, but make sure you're just getting used to the signals that your body is sending to you, and really building that mind-muscle connection and relationship with your body. And then last but not least, no aggressiveness with your progress.
Be gentle.
Be gentle with yourself. And I think those three tips, 3 ways of looking at training will really help you to avoid injuries, also build that kind of mental confidence around previous injuries, and just make strength training so much more fun.
Definitely. We had a few bonus ones that we didn't want to spend too much time on the podcast, but just to chuck them in and maybe we can talk about them another time. Just quick fire. Warming up. That's another one. Really important to warm up before your workout, or your strength training. If you, for whatever reason, you're not going to do your warm up, make the first set your sort of warm up set. So go a bit lighter with your first set.
Good point. And
then go to your sort of 8 out of 10 challenge later once you're more warmed up to it, more warmed up into it. That's it.
You need to warm up into that.
And then I was going to make another point. can I make another point?
Please.
Which is also, don't be scared to progress. I know we spoke a lot about setting the fundamentals, and I know there'll be some people in the camp of being like, but I haven't completely perfected my this form or that form, my, you know, I'm not ready to progress. You don't want to get in your own way at the same time.
That's a good point. Yeah.
We talk about being like fit enough. We talk about things being good enough. When you've got good form, you're ready to move on. You know, when you don't want to be like, stuck for ages where you're actually limiting yourself from the benefits that you're going to be getting.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might need, you know, to get a coach or, you know, get a friend to have a look who might be a bit more experienced in the gym to be like, actually, no, your form's looking really good. Why don't you try and gradually increase it from now? So yeah, I think don't be scared to progress. Don't let the great get in the way of the good.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it sounds like we're then just completely contradicting everything, but it all falls under the same umbrella of like listening to your body. And if your body's saying you're ready to progress, then you're ready to progress. But if, you know, you're really listening to your body, understanding how something feels, and it's, you know, saying just hold on a week or two, then, you know, you've got to do that as well.
Yeah. Final thing. One more
oh
thing.
My God, are you serious?
Just disclaimer is that, you know, all these things are going to help you reduce your risk of injury when you're strength training. And of course, the fact that you're strength training anyway is going to reduce your risk of injury from life. But with everything, there's always going to be risks. So you probably will get injured at some point, no matter what you're doing. If you're putting yourself out there and you're doing things and you're enjoying your life, you probably still will get injured. But doing all these things is going to massively reduce that risk.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. One more?
That's it. I'm done.
That's it. All right. Those are your, what did that turn into? 6 tips. 3 plus 3. What are you looking forward to this week coming?
I am looking forward to our band order.
Yeah.
Our money that we sent through, getting to the factory and for them to start production.
Yeah.
That's going to be a huge milestone. Oh, and we're speaking to a local gym on Tuesday, and we're speaking to Chris from Lift the Bar on Tuesday as well. It's very exciting, telling them about what we're doing with Strong Band and getting some feedback on it.
Yeah.
What about you?
Definitely those. I'm looking forward to hopefully completing both websites, my website and the Strong Band website. I'm just looking forward to more outreach, trying to tell more people about Strong Band and see what we can cook up. Yeah. Let's see what we can do.
All right, sorry, I think it was my fault that this has gone. Maybe it's another hour again. We'll see.
Collective effort. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.